OverDrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Brian Hayes, Frankie Corrado, Gerry's later in the afternoon, later in the hour. Little Gerry's. Gerry's got some takes.
That's nice of Gerry to stop by in the summer.
Yeah, very nice. Very nice. He sent an email, so I mean, it wasn't a full commitment, but he did decide, you know, and I got some things I want to say. I think he's kind of captivated by this whole, you know, Leafs captaincy thing, the offer sheet, St. Louis and Edmonton. Like, what's next in the NHL? What do you think is coming next? Any big news would you expect between now and the beginning of camps in a month? Or
I think the Jeremy Swayman contract has to get done, doesn't it? Like, isn't that a spicy meatball just kind of hanging out there? He didn't file for arbitration this year, and I don't know if I'm reading into that, Hayes. I kind of think he didn't do that because he's thinking, throw an offer sheet my way. Who wants to pay me a lot of money? I don't need to tie myself to arbitration, but that hasn't materialized.
Yeah, and they moved off Ullmark. They're obviously committed to Swayman. Like, you'd think Boston would have some sort of, I don't know, like not a sense that you have to get something done immediately. Like, you don't want to hand leverage over to the player completely and just say blank check. But he's your guy. Like, you've drafted him, you've developed him. He's been a tandem for a couple of years, and now you're telling him, like, okay, Korpisalo's there, who I'm sure they kind of like, and they think they can maybe they'll get more out of him than Ottawa did. Like, you just know it. The way Boston works, the way Ottawa works, Korpisalo will be better in Boston. But that's a good point. Like, I think Swayman, he's going to be looking to get paid. He probably deserves to be. Consider the way he played in the playoffs. He was phenomenal. He was great all of last season. He's a really good young goalie. The Draisaitl deal, although those are extensions. What about Sid? Like, we still haven't heard anything from Sid. Sid's going into his final year. Again, he's not going anywhere. He's going to play for Pittsburgh, but is he going to sign an extension before he steps on the ice next year? Or is he going to wait it out?
Yeah, it'll be interesting, man. We'll be tracking extensions all year long, it feels like, right? Like, we're going to be here in Toronto. Does John Tavares automatically now get an extension because he's relinquished the captaincy? Like, is there anything Mitch Marner can do in the regular season that would warrant an extension without seeing it get done in the playoffs? You know, like, do you ride that one out? I think at some point we're going to have those conversations as well with the team.
Yeah, and then tryouts, right? Like, who's going to get signed to a tryout that's still out there? Which one of those kind of older vets who are still hanging around that might still be able to make an impact? Who's still out there? And, you know, that doesn't necessarily move the needle, but it still can have an impact on what a team's going to do, right? Like, there have been examples of that here in Toronto where they've invited guys to camp, maybe with a wink, wink, nudge, nudge, you're going to end up signing and we're going to play, or we're going to have you play for us. But you have a big camp, you get signed, or maybe other teams come lurking, and, you know, that kind of thing can still happen.
Bring JVR home.
JVR's out there.
Is JVR not signed? I'm pretty sure he's out there. Bring JVR home.
Yeah.
Let's do it. You really want to run it back? Bring JVR in. Let's go.
I like that idea. Yeah, JVR is still out there. I want to say, is Kevin Shattenkirk still out there? I think he might be.
Tyson Barry's out there.
Yeah. Max Pacioretty, I think, is still out there, coming off a lot of injuries, but could be wrong on that. But
dude, you scoop up one of those guys for $1 million. It's low risk. And you know what? Maybe you grab an extra, you know, a juicy season out of them near the end of their tenures. Yeah. I'm looking at Daily Faceoff right now. This was last week. It came out. JVR still out there. Van Riemsdyk's still out there. Tyson Barry's still out there. Tyler Johnson, Max Pacioretty, Jakub Vrana is still out there. Obviously John Klingberg, but you know, he's not coming back.
No.
But yeah, there are still some guys. Cal Clutterbuck is still out there. Can he bang around and do his thing on the fourth line? I don't know.
Well, did Lou walk away from Clutterbuck and Martin? Like, that's the fourth line that was there forever. It doesn't sound like either of those guys would have been coming back, but Cizikas is there.
Cizikas is still there. But yeah, I think Clutterbuck's out there. So, I mean, I would expect, you know, a few of those guys will get invites to camp. You know, once you've gone this far, you understand you don't have a lot of leverage. You know, there aren't teams knocking on your door. You might have one or two teams who your agent can call up and say, can you bring them into camp? Give it a look. I think JVR would be really well received here. Like, he was a really good Leaf. You know, he loved being a Leaf. It was a trade that was a great trade at the time. Like, Luke Schenn obviously came back full circle. It worked out really well in terms of Luke Schenn and his career. But that was a really good deal. Like, JVR for Luke Schenn worked out really, really well for the Maple Leafs. and he's had a really good career, and he's, what is he, 35 now? It's crazy, man. JVR is 35 years old.
You wouldn't be bringing in prime JVR.
No.
Like, you'd have to have realistic expectations for what he is as a player. But if he could give you a little scoring lower in the lineup, I feel like that's a welcome thing every year. Like, we must have that conversation, whether it's on this show or on SportsCenter or after games. It's like, yeah, if Matthews didn't score tonight, no one was going to score tonight. Well, like, there's a guy, like, okay, may not be the fastest guy, but put him around the net, put him on the second power play, pretty good hands. He might give you a little offensive pop. Who knows?
Yeah. Some of these guys are gonna get scooped up late. Like, it will happen, and whether it's on a tryout or they just get signed. So a lot of times what can happen too is there can be a deal that's on the table. Like, teams have called up, let's say it's JVR, said, listen, we have 1 year, $900,000 for you. Call us if you want it. We're not going to probably spend it between now and camp. It's there, it's tabled. Give us a shot. If you find something better, so be it. Go for it. Like, that happens, I think, sometimes too with certain players throughout the league that might be sitting on something and they're trying to find something better. But eventually they circle back and take it.
Like, what if you want to go somewhere? What if you're waiting to say, yeah, I don't want to sign 1 year, $900,000 with San Jose. I would do it in Boston. I would do it in Edmonton. Well, maybe not Edmonton because they're strapped. But you know what I'm saying? Like, somewhere where, you just want to try and win at that point. You're 35 years old. You're not accomplishing anything for $900,000, on a bottom feeder.
Yeah, that seems reasonable, and I'm sure that's what a number of these players are thinking. So, yeah, that's probably still to come. Some signings, some extensions, some tryouts, and possibly some matching, right? Edmonton's got to figure out if they're going to match. As for the Jays situation last night, George Springer gets tossed. He wasn't happy. I think he was justified in pushing back originally and saying it hit me. Like, he got hit by a pitch. The game was over by that point. It's 5-0. That Angels team is horrendous. They Terrible. Are awful. I have an appreciation for George still having fire, considering how much money he's made, what he's done throughout his career, and the fact that this season is effectively a write-off. The white flag is up. And we talked about it yesterday on the show. Like, John Schneider has to continue to hammer details, and you need to rely on your best players to continue to be professionals and show up and prove that they care. Because when you get all these kids around, if the vets are just like, get me out of here, I want to go play TPC, and I just want to golf and booze and party and have fun for the whole month of October because I'm not playing and I'm not going to the gym, and just get me out, that can have a really negative effect, I think, on your program. And I don't want to make a mountain out of a molehill, but I like the fact that George, kind of blew a gasket last night. Here's Steve Phillips, our TSN MLB insider. What did you read into that last night? George Springer in a 5-0 ball game late in the season, getting thrown out, and really he snapped. Like, he really blew up last night.
Yeah, I think, guys, and thanks for having me on. I think that what we saw was some of the venom of the frustrations of the season coming out too. Mm-hmm. That happens sometimes, right? You get so frustrated that you just, it just starts to come out, and then you just can't hold it in. And so I think we saw some of that. And so, look, he cares. There's never been a doubt about how much he cares. And look, this whole team cares. And when they struggle, there's nobody that is harder on them than themselves, right? I mean, you can have coaches, this and that, but these guys all take pride in their performance. They look at the scoreboard. They see their stats up on the scoreboard. They don't like what they're seeing. They see the standings. They don't like it. It's no fun playing when the games don't mean anything. But yeah, you've got to maintain a level of pride. You got to keep fighting and pulling together. And, I think that back at the trade deadline, and I said it then, the 2025 season started on July 31st, right? The day after the deadline. The next season started then for this team. They've really got to, focus on what they're building and who's going to be part of the problem, part of the solution for next year. And whatever problems any individual had this season, they've got to fix them now. So they've got an off season for all those to be reinforced, practiced, and really locked in, ingrained, so that they're ready to perform next year. And it's not a fixing right out of spring training in the beginning of the season.
I like the message that sends, Steve, showing a little bit of emotion, especially when there's really not that much to play for when it comes to the standings. But, from your point of view, you're a general manager. How hard is it, I guess, for the players in this situation to toe the line between showing that emotion, but maybe not letting it get out of hand where it almost turns into, not a sideshow act, not toxic, but more closer to that level than it is, towards the level of emotion within the game?
Yeah, I think that you trust the players to do it, and then it's up to the manager and the coaching staff to sort of corral some of that emotion if it starts to get out of control. Because as a general manager, you're up in the box watching the game, and you can't intercede. You can't. So they've got to feel the emotion of what's going on in the clubhouse, what's going on in the dugout, and you as a general manager tend to be there on the backside of it to offer support, to pat guys on the back, and your presence can be there to sort of reinforce the importance. As a general manager, I felt like when things were going good, it wasn't necessary for me to be around, and in the clubhouse and in everybody's face all the time. They didn't need that. But when things were going badly, I wanted to be there just so that I could take some accountability and responsibility and share in some of the misery that is going on, and then to try to pat guys on the back because, it's to build some energy there and some support there and some reinforcement. I think that's the part of the GM in all of it, and then to support the staff. But when it comes to individual day-to-day, that's where the manager and the coaching staff really need to have that relationship with the players to be able to have a feel for where they are at any given time and place.
With Steve Phillips. So Jay's back in action tonight. I think a lot of Blue Jay fans are trying to figure out, what do we have here in Will Wagner, who's not a kid. He's 26 years old. He just made his debut. He had 3 hits the opening night. He had 2 last night, a double to start this campaign last night. Guy's on fire, early in his big league career. But again, he's not a kid. What do you make of a story like this, and how much should Blue Jay fans be reading into what they've seen out of Wagner through 2 games and try to apply it to what he could be in the future?
Yeah, it's so hard to know, right? I mean, when any player starts his career, good or bad, it doesn't always tell the whole story. We saw David Schneider come up last year and tear it up, but this year he wasn't really the same kind of offensive player. When the league starts to make an adjustment to you, you've got to show you can make an adjustment. When you first get up there, what they typically try to do is to see whether you can hit that fastball down and away. And then once you prove that, then they're going to start to go up in the zone. Then they're going to start to come inside to you a little bit. Then they're going to start to feed you the breaking balls. And so it really is this game of adjustments. And they don't have the book on you. They have some scouting reports, but not a lot. But I think it's just about professionalism. It's about preparation and going out there and grinding out, performing. That is the one good thing, right? You get some young guys up there with something to prove. They're going to bring energy every day. They're going to be grit every day. And that really does and sometimes leads the veterans to understand, like, there's still people carrying around me right now. I need to be accountable and responsible to them as well. And so, I like Will Wagner. He's one of those guys that, he's a baseball player. Obviously, Dad, Billy Wagner, was always underestimated. When Billy Wagner was drafted, people were like, oh, man, a 5'9" pitcher, is this guy going to be big enough? And he came out there with a 100-mile-per-hour fastball, and his fastball was big enough. His arm was big enough. And so, he's not a guy with power. He's not a guy with speed, but he can hit. He's got great plate discipline. He had a .424 on base percentage at AAA. I love that. The ability to recognize ball from strike, fastball from breaking ball. And now we'll see. And what I believe is that almost every good hitter tends to figure out how to hit for power as they go on. They'll find during the course of an at-bat, once they get settled in, that 2-0, 2-1 pitch, they can look for something to drive where maybe they don't have to look just to make contact to hit it over the second baseman's head, but he can look for something that he can try to pull and yank out of the ballpark and then get back into the approach. If he misses that pitch or he doesn't get it or it's something he doesn't like, he can get back into that other approach. And I think he has that ability to do it, but you'll find that out here. Not completely, but you get a sense of what he can do here over the last couple months of the season.
What's your evaluation of Joey Loperfido so far? It hasn't exactly been the greatest start for him. He was 0 for 24. He gets an RBI single last night. What have you seen from his game, and what's your early evaluation on him?
So he's got some swing and miss in his game. He's got some holes. But he also has some legitimate power. We saw that. Remember, he got called up to the Astros. He was leading the minor leagues in home runs at the time. So, he's a guy with a power swing. And typically guys like that, a little bigger swing that's looking to drive the ball, there are some places that you can pitch to them a little bit. And when you get traded, there's that adjustment that needs to be made. So again, I don't think we've gone through it. And really, you kind of want to see somebody struggle at some point to see how they get out of it. And, fans kind of think, why would you ever want to see somebody struggle? And you really want to see that at the minor league level. And a lot of players nowadays whip through the minor leagues. They sort of tear it up like Jackson Holliday did with the Orioles. Doesn't really ever struggle. And then he gets to the big leagues, and when he struggles, he doesn't have something to fall back on. And so I think for everybody, going through struggles, they're all going to go through it. Earlier this year, Bryce Harper was, 1 for 30 or something like that. Bryce Harper, who's, an MVP a couple times and over. And so, it happens to everybody. And you got to find your way through it. And, he'll learn. And what they'll learn about him is his ability to make adjustments, where he needs to make those adjustments. And then that's where the coaching starts to come in. And, you hope that they can start to make some impact with the offensive play, because that's where the Jays have fallen short, it feels to me. Their hitters have been slow to make adjustments, really. And typically from year to year, sometimes they make them. They didn't make them from last year to this year. And so that's where I think they really need to sort of button things up a little bit. To make some adjustments on the coaching staff with this team to start to make adjustments as hitters.
So are you suggesting like the coaches that they have to start doing that, or maybe in the offseason they have to look at different coaches? Like, is that possible at some point?
Yeah. I think the answer is yes. So in the short term, they've got to start to fix it now, right? That they've got to see what they can do over the last 2 months to continue to make adjustments for hitters, and then they have to evaluate it. And the thing is that every indication I've gotten is the coaches are hardworking, they care, they take the analytics, they share it with the players, and they're doing all of those things that you would want to do, right? So the preparation and the process is there, but sometimes when the results aren't, you still have to look at potentially making a change, where maybe you could bring somebody else in with a different voice who says it a little bit differently, and all of a sudden a light bulb goes on. And I've seen that time and again. When I ran the minor leagues, we'd have roving instructors come into town, and they would say something to a hitter or to a pitcher, and the hitter and pitcher go, "Oh man, wow, and I get it." And the pitching coach and the hitting coach on the team said, "I've been saying that to you for a month now." And like they thought they heard something that was novel and new, and it was going to change their life. And the guys were there, but it was just a different voice saying the same thing. And so, they've got to make that evaluation. But what we do know is the results haven't been what I think anybody would have liked, including the coaches that are there. They know that they've not gotten the results that they want. And so they're going to have to make that evaluation. But in the short term, the guys who are there can start to really see if they can make some changes and adjustments to guys who are really struggling.
With Steve Phillips, our TSN MLB insider, the Chicago White Sox beat up on the Yankees a couple nights ago. And the Yankees have been playing better. They've surpassed the Orioles. I think they're a half game up on Baltimore right now. That'll be a race. Chisholm Jr., though, on the IL, that could be an issue for them moving forward. But the White Sox, with 29 wins at this point in the season, a minus 244 run differential, is this the worst team you've ever seen? Like, what do you make of the Sox? And is it possibly the worst team we've ever seen in professional baseball?
Yes. The answer is yes to that. It is. And it is the worst team that we've seen. And remember, they got worse after the trade deadline because they traded away the good guys.
Right.
The good guys, most of them. And Crochet is going to have to be managed and shut down. The one pitcher they didn't trade, they need to manage his innings now and make sure that they keep him healthy. They didn't trade Luis Robert Jr., so he's still there. But remember, they were on pace for 37 wins with all those other guys. And so, they're not very good. They're inexperienced. And they got guys in the major leagues who shouldn't be in the major leagues yet. But that's part of what happens when you rebuild. It just really got away. So I think there's certainly a talent deficiency. They're outmanned and outgunned some. But I also think there was an atmosphere issue there that they just, I remember when the Orioles were going through it, and we would interview Brandon Hyde every week. And it was like, what do you say to the guy every week when they're losing 110 games? And you're talking to him thinking, "Oh, how you hanging this week?" He goes, "Yeah, not very good." And yet, he saw it through, and now he's reaping the benefits on the other side of it, where you can see the young players grow and develop at the major league level. I think that the White Sox are 3 years away from being 3 years away from competing. There's going to be a long time before they're going to be competitive. And what I really hope they do, though, is that they do spend some money next year to be more competitive, because one of the things that's part of development of young players at the major league level is you need to teach them how to win, and they've got to learn how to close out games. They have the worst record in baseball this year when they have a lead after 6 innings, the worst record in baseball when they have the lead after 7 innings, and the worst record in baseball, second worst record in baseball, and they have the lead after 8 innings. I mean, they would give up so many leads, and that's teaching kids what to look for about how to lose games and not how to win games. So they've got some work to do there, a lot of work to do there.
Yeah.
Looking for a new manager and a young general manager. Although he's a Michigan guy, where I give him some credit there.
Yeah.
That there's some hope that things can turn around. They've got a long way to go.
Yeah, they do. And I saw Kylie McDaniel of ESPN. He went through his, I guess, midseason top 100 MLB prospects, and I was looking for White Sox players on there, and there are a few of them. There's only one Blue Jay in the top 100. He's got Orelvis Martinez at 62. Tiedemann outside of the top 100, probably because of the Tommy John. But what sticks out to me, he still has Holiday listed, as a, I guess, prospect. I'm not sure that's a reality anymore, obviously, considering what he's been doing with Baltimore. But he's got three Orioles in the top 10. Like 3 Orioles in the top 10 best prospects in baseball. Like, how do you keep up with these guys, considering how good they already are at the major league level, and when you consider what they have coming?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. That's why I think there's a dynasty being formed there.
Yeah.
And it's going to be very difficult for teams to rebuild like the Orioles did, because when the last CBA, when they changed the draft rules by making it, a lottery, and you can't have the first pick 2 years in a row. And, you can't get Bryce Harper and Steven Strasburg back-to-back years like the Nats did back in the day. You're not going to get the back-to-back first-round picks. You're really going to have to draft well. And so rebuilding is going to be much more difficult for teams to do, which I'm not sure is the right thing for the game, honestly, because do we need the White Sox to take longer to get better? And it's not going to keep teams from wanting to rebuild. They're all going to still do it, and it's going to take them longer to get back on track again. So I'm not sure that the new format is really the right thing for the game in the long run. Because I don't think people tanked. I don't think any part of, people didn't try to lose games to get the first round pick. They just rebuilt, and wherever they fell in line with the number of games that they won, that's where they ended up drafting. And so, I think that it'll be interesting, but it's a long ways away for the White Sox to ever get back to being competitive.
Yeah, it sure seems that way. All right, Steve, good stuff, pal. We'll do it again soon. Thank you for this.
You bet, guys. Have a good weekend.
Steve Phillips, our TSN MLB insider. Yeah, one Blue Jay, though, in the top 100. That's, Kylie McDaniel of ESPN. We've had him on the show a few times, and that was released earlier this morning. The 2024 midseason top 100 MLB prospect update. Again, he's got Jackson Holiday at number 1. Kobe Mayo at 6. He's the third baseman coming up for the Orioles. He's got Samuel Basallo, who's a catcher, at 10, who's coming for the Orioles. Like 3 in the top 10, and they have 70 wins already this season.
Listen,
Crazy.
The way these rankings are. We do them with hockey. Like, they are, there's a little subjectivity involved. Mm-hmm. It's nice for the fan base to know that they have a lot of young prospects, but there's a lot of players that were young prospects who turned into average guys.
Yeah.
Like, there's really no guarantee, but it doesn't say great things about the Jays that there's one guy on that list and he's in the 60s. You know what I mean? Like, it's better to have them in there, and hey, if they don't turn out, they don't turn out, than to not even have a shot at it.
Right. Well, and also, if they're on there, that's a general consensus around baseball. There'll be some, fluctuation between how Kylie feels and how a team feels about, different prospects throughout baseball. But the more of those bullets you have, the more trade ammo you have, too, right? Yeah. Like, if you have, like Baltimore, I just listed the 3 kids in the top 10. There's a very good chance at least one of them will get traded this upcoming offseason. And the team that will trade for them will give up an incredible piece because that player is the 5th ranked prospect in baseball, right? Doesn't guarantee the kid will develop into a stud or even a player. He maybe just won't make it. The Blue Jays have had countless examples of that over the years, like every other team, where they've had guys who were top 10 in baseball, top 20, top 30, and just never even made it. But if you have those players who project really well, the value that comes with that in trades is just incredible.
Well, it's because you're not hanging your hat on that one guy. Like, how many times in Toronto has it been this one guy that's coming up? Man, this guy Nate Pearson. It's like there's the one guy. Or remember they had Chuck Norris who was living in the van. It's like there's that one guy. If you have a stable, you got a bunch of those guys. You can throw them all at the wall in your own organization, see what sticks. And like you said, yes, now you have ammo because other teams are going to value that, because a team like the Jays might look at that and say, okay, we got something to part with. We're kind of a middling team, or they're trying to rebuild, whatever you want to call it. We need that. So we'll give you a little more of a premium for it. It's just, it's dangerous to have those kinds of tools at your disposal, however you want to use them.
Absolutely. So yeah, Jays back in action tonight. We'll get to our best bets brought to you by FanDuel later in the hour on the Blue Jay game tonight. Gerry emailing in some takes. We'll get to a midsummer Gerry's. We look forward to that. And again, we got the Jays in action tonight. It was a big day down at Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment with Austin Matthews being anointed the 26th captain in franchise history. Frankie Corrado's in here. I'm Brian Hayes. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2.
You're going to want to hear this.
Gerry's percentages.
I don't love being commissioner as much as I used to. I actually love it even more.
That's the voice of a Hall of Famer.
Are you kidding? Have you been out drinking?
You're all pigeons. Filthy, filthy pigeons.
It's Gerry. Gerry.
All right, so this is a rarity that Gerry, midsummer, decided to send us an email earlier this morning saying, I got some things I want to get off my chest. I want to ask some questions. I have some takes. And Frankie, you and I, we're going to, I guess, apply a percentage to the likeliness of these takes actually happening in the future. Sounds good?
Yeah, I'm happy Gerry's having a good summer, and he checked in with us. That's nice of him.
Yeah, it seems like he's in really good spirits right now, which is great. We support that. We look forward to hearing him more in the future and seeing him more in the future. All right, his first take. John Tavares will remain a Maple Leaf after this season.
Ooh, I am less than 50% on this, but slightly less than 50%. I'm going to say 46%. And I don't like to go too close to 50, but I really could see this going either way. Here's my rationale. If the Leafs all of a sudden have this long playoff run and they're sniffing a Stanley Cup, of course John Tavares is coming back, and he's going to come back at a reasonable cap hit, and everyone's going to be happy. He's going to be a productive player. It's going to be seen as part of the solution for things. But if the Leafs don't get past the first round of the playoffs this year, or it's like, when they beat Tampa and then it was pretty, it wasn't very spirited against the Florida Panthers and they bow out, it's going to be like, okay, we have contracts coming up organically that are going to move some players off our books, and we can go in a different direction. It's going to be thank you for everything, and we're going to move on. I'm probably a little under 50% on him actually returning, just with the way things have gone over the last 7 years with the team. Not him as individually, but it honestly could go either way.
Yeah, I'm lower than that because I feel like John wants to remain a Leaf. I think he made that pretty clear today. I think his actions today would suggest that, right? That he wants to remain here. He doesn't want to rock the apple cart. Like, even though, again, by all accounts, very professional, he was on board with this. Brad Treliving and company approached him. He's been a part of the program the whole time and said, fine, I'm with you. Right time, let's do it. Austin, you're the captain. He could have handled this very differently if he wanted out. Right? He may have not been a Leaf anymore. It could have been take the C off, I'm out of here, trade me, I'll waive, find a partner. That didn't happen. It could have been even a scenario where it's like, I'm going to play out my final year, I'm going to be vindictive, but I'm walking after this. I'm not showing up at the press conference and handing it over to Austin. He didn't do that. His actions would suggest, A, he's a classy guy, which I think we all knew, but B, he's also very committed to being a Maple Leaf. With or without being the captain, he wants to stay here. Right? He's got a young family. He's got a wife, 3 kids. They live in the city. They're from the city. I'm sure they want to remain in the city for the rest of their lives. So I think he wants to stay here. So I think the Leafs know that and probably realize that they can give him their answer and basically put a piece of paper on the table with respect, but say this is what it's going to be if we want to get to that point. But you do not do it before the season comes to an end next year. And I have a tough time seeing them just snapping out of the playoff futility and going on this cup run all of a sudden. That would be a hell of a turn of events. But they got to show me before I'm willing to jump that far. So if it continues down the same path it has the previous 6 years, I'm at like 20% that he returns. 20%. I don't think the door's completely closed, nor should it, because he's still a good player. He's been a good Leaf. He's been a good leader. He's well received in the fan base. People like him. He's done everything you could ask him to do. But he's going to be 34. That means the next deal's kicking in at 35. That's when his season will start next season. 35 years old. That's not a young guy. And it's like, what kind of commitment are we talking about? And if it's 7 years where they can't get anything past even the second round, why would you keep doing it? I know we keep saying this after every single year. Why would you keep doing it?
Whether it's second line, third line, center,
whatever
wing, it's a player who's been there, who's been a big part of it.
Worked.
And exactly, and it hasn't worked. And organically, it's expired now. So you would really, Hayes, be going back to the well on something that theoretically has not worked. If we get to April and it's another first round bow out,
right? And that's why anything's possible with this team and with the way that they operate and the commitment and the loyalty that they show to their best players, and they've been very committed, very loyal. But it would have been 7 years, and it'll be turning 35.
Another thing.
That's a different story altogether.
And the Leafs would have to make a business decision that's probably a little bit cutthroat and go to him and say, like you said, here's the number. What that number is going to be, it'll be lower than market value for sure. How much lower, that remains to be seen. But if it's significantly lower, and there's a team that's willing to pay John Tavares $5.5, maybe $6 million because he's still a 70-point guy and the cap's going up for 3 years. That's a lot of cash to leave on the table. It's a lot of cash. I don't care how much you've made or how old you are. It's fairly significant.
It is. All right, moving on here. Jerry's tweeting in or texting and emailing in. Austin Matthews will have a longer tenure as captain than John Tavares. That'll be 6+ years at a minimum as captain of the Maple Leafs for Matthews.
I will give this 89%. I'm fairly certain that is going to be the case here. He's going to play out this contract as a Maple Leaf, and the fact that they have now put the C on his crest would lead me to believe that he will be more inclined to be a Maple Leaf for life. And who knows what the playoff success looks like over the course of Matthews' tenure as a captain. But this is kind of the next step in his legacy. And, we kind of, you and I talked about it on SportsCenter, the guys that have been built the same way. First overall picks that were captains of their teams. We're talking Crosby, Ovechkin, McDavid, Stamkos. I'm sure I'm missing guys. Stamkos just moved on. He was there for a long time. He was the captain for a long time. All those other guys have been there tenured as captains with that team for a long time. I expect the same for Austin Matthews. This almost feels like a new Austin Matthews era in Toronto with him being the captain, and I can see it lasting longer than the John Tavares captaincy. Yeah, I'm there too. I'm going to say 99% because they're not going to remove the captaincy from him. I don't picture a scenario like that unless, and this would be a really bad sign, a couple of years ago, I'm just not fit for it, or maybe you should give it to somebody else. If that happens, you have real problems on your hands. I don't picture that being the case. There will not be a transition to the next player in 5 years. That's not going to happen. It's more about whether or not he's going to be a Leaf that long, and I think that's going to be the case. I know the way he's worked out his deals. It's been very unique. It has not been team friendly, but that's the way he's operated. The team loves him. The team wants him to be a Leaf forever. You need the playoff success to push it to that next level, but I can't picture a scenario, even if they're still not having the playoff success, where they look at him and say that's going to be the ultimate change. I think they'd change everyone else within the organization, literally everyone else. And they'll just continue to commit to him and let him continue to rack up points and goals and rewrite the record books and be the man here. And I think him taking on this responsibility, wanting this responsibility, understanding who he is, what the city is, the team history, etc. I think it's more likely he sticks around for a long time. Will he play here his whole career? Maybe not. But he's got 4 years left on his deal. He'll be 30, I guess, when he signs his next, 31 when he starts his next. He'll be 27 in a month or whatever. So he'll be playing 27, 28, 29, 30 on this deal.
31, he's still going to be a rock star in this league.
He's either doing another 4-year deal to take him to 35 and kind of reevaluate, or he's just going to say, let's do it. I'm a Leaf for life. Give me the 8 years. And you know what? If I got 2 extra at the end to play 38, 39, 40, we'll figure that one out. But it's one or the other.
Yes, I agree. I think it's very likely he sticks around for a long time. All right, Gerry's percentage is continuing here. If Ken Holland were still the GM in Edmonton, what's your Gerry's on these offer sheets being tendered by St. Louis?
19%. It is a little bit of the gentleman's agreement element coming into play, and I think Doug Armstrong and Ken Holland were they're very tight. These guys go on golf trips together. I don't know if he would do that to him. Now, business is business. Maybe there is a chance that would happen, but I feel like this is Kenny's gone. I'm going to put you guys in a bit of a situation there, Jeff Jackson and Stan Bowman, and see what you got. And I'm coming after a couple of your guys, and I may have to overpay for one of them, but that's how we're doing business with you guys. And even Armstrong and Stan Bowman, I would imagine over the years of St. Louis losing to Chicago in the playoffs, I would imagine there's a no love lost there between those two guys.
Sure. Yeah, I agree. I think it's closer to 0%. I don't think Doug Armstrong would do it to Ken Holland. I think Ken Holland, there's a 3-pack of executives in the league. Doug Armstrong's not far from these guys, but Lou Lamoriello, Jim Rutherford, and Ken Holland are 3 guys who have been in the league for 40 years or more. Holland and Rutherford were players that they have such immense respect around the league. And I know it sounds ridiculous because this is a business and it's pro sports and it's totally legal and totally justified what St. Louis did here. They saw a unique situation where it's mid-August, Edmonton's way over the cap, they can't do anything, and they attacked. And I liked it. I like the move. I think it's a shrewd move. I don't love the fact that they're paying Broberg in particular that much money, but they like him. He's a young guy. They feel like he can pop. Okay, so be it. But Rutherford, I don't think this happens. Holland, I don't think this happens. Lamoriello, I don't think this happens. I don't think the other GMs in the league would do it. And
I don't.
Maybe one of the players. I don't think it would have been a double attack.
I'm just trying to think if Lou got offer sheeted. I don't know if we go through all the offer sheets in the history of the game. When he was with Jersey, did he ever get offer sheeted? I can't.
I don't recall that.
I can't recall. I don't think so. I'm just trying to imagine if you're the GM, Brian Hayes the GM, and you offer sheeted Patrick Eliash back in the day, and your phone rings and it's Lou Lamoriello. Are you kind of afraid for what this guy's going to say when you pick up that phone?
Well, I don't think it's afraid necessarily, but I think I'd be prepared for him to possibly completely cut you off, which may not matter. Maybe you're like, hey, whatever, dude. It's a sport. We're trying to win here. But I don't know how Lou would react to that. I wouldn't love to have that conversation. I'd like to have Patrick Eliash on my team, but I wouldn't love to talk to Lou about it.
I just could picture Lou okay, you made your move.
Okay.
We'll see what happens next.
Right. I know, and I would be very fearful of what was coming next. Yeah. But I don't think this would happen if Holland were there. And I don't know how much of it is Stan Bowman, how much of it's Jeff Jackson, right? Jackson was an agent for quite some time. And, I don't know what his relationship is with all of the GMs and presidents around the league. And, everything was breaking Edmonton's way, and now they've gotten, hit with a bit of reality here, bit of a reality check. Not everything's going to break your way. You know what I mean? Arvidsson signed, and you got Jeff Skinner to come aboard, and you got Corey Perry last year when you were trying to get him, and Connor Brown came back, and Henrique came back, and everything's coming up Oilers. Now all of a sudden it's welcome back into the league. How are you going to handle this? So they got to figure that out. All right. Gerry's percentages. What else does he have here? George Springer will finish out his contract with the Blue Jays. 2 more years after this. George will play it all out. Jays will have him. He'll be a part of it, and it's all good.
26%. I'm not bought into the fact that the Jays are all of a sudden going to turn this thing around and they're going to be contenders next year. Quite frankly, Hayes, I don't even think they're going to be contenders for 2026. So where does that leave George Springer? Probably an asset that they're going to move at a deadline to bring in a young piece because they're still trying to rebuild this thing. Like I think it's more likely than not that at some point George Springer turns into a rental going to a team that has World Series aspirations, and I don't see that being the Blue Jays come 2 years' time.
Yeah, it's an interesting scenario because he's getting paid so much money. He's still making $24 million the next couple of years. After next season, he'll have 10-5 rights in Toronto. It may be a scenario where, again, the two parties work together. I'm going to say, I'm with you. I don't love to be around the 50-50 mark, but I'm going to say 49%. I'm just into the minority that he sticks it out. I think he's a marketable player to an extent, or he was certainly when he arrived. That's probably worn off a little bit. He is a veteran. If they're going to have youth around, young players around, they're going to want some vets. He has won a World Series before, but it's just so much money. And, his play has really come around, in the last couple of months, to his credit. But the start of the year, last year, it was awful. I feel like he's going to trail off even more. There's no way you can just unload the contract completely. You're going to have to eat a lot of the money. And you may have to work with George in terms of how he wants to handle that. But I don't see 2 years from now it being a good scene for George Springer, which, again, opens the door to what other teams might want. Why would you want a 36-year-old George Springer? Even if you only got to pay him $4 or $5 million, like even if the Jays are willing to eat like $20 million on the deal.
The way it is when teams are kind of loading up for that playoff push. They just want guys that have won, that have that presence, that can say the right thing at the right time. Like at that point he might go somewhere. He might be, I don't know, he might be an extra guy. Like he might not be a starter, but he's going to have whatever they're looking for intangible wise. But yeah, it is a lot of money. You're right.
It is, for sure. So, all right, there you go. Little midsummer Jerry's. I love it. Mid-August Jerry's, man. We're not even midsummer anymore. It's August 14th. It's almost go time. Kids are back in school in a few weeks.
Yeah. That's something that you, like parents like you, are looking forward to. Sure.
This week is not a camp week for the kids, and I had them in earlier today. I brought them into the studio. My dad was coming to pick them up. They were going to go see a movie, and it was great. We were in here for like 20 minutes, but it's a place of business. There's people working.
Did they meet JP?
They came across JP. JP and my girls had a bit of a standoff. It was a little bit of a stare down, and I think JP won. They were nervous around JP. But they did meet JP. He does have a presence. Yeah, and they love Owen. Owen's 7 feet tall, so they were amazed by how tall he is. And, they met the whole crew. So it was great.
Good.
Yeah, it was great. Just kind of cruising around, getting pictures, bothering people. Like
play a little basketball?
No, we couldn't because Kaz was in here doing a show, so just it didn't time out. We got here around 2, and they were out of here by like 2:15.
I think even with Kaz doing the show, they probably could have played basketball. Like I actually don't think he would have minded. If anything, it would have added, a little something. He would have like narrated it or done play-by-play or something.
I think you're right. I think you're probably right. He is the best with that kind of stuff. He would have been totally cool with it. But it is a place of business, so it's kind of an in and out thing. Anyway, we'll come back with our best bets brought to you by FanDuel. Jays Angels in action again tonight. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. All right, today's best bets powered by FanDuel. Make your picks and assemble a same-game parlay in seconds on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. All right, Vladdy's been red hot. I think that continues tonight. You got to pay a lot of juice, for just like a hit prop on FanDuel right now for Vladdy. You're paying minus 330. The guy's been the hottest hitter in baseball for 2 months. But if you parlay that with the under, and that's what I did last night, it hit, right? I was on my boy Will Wagner recording a hit, and the under last night, that hit. I'm going to play that again tonight. Under the number 8.5 total runs, Vladdy to record a hit, that's paying plus 169. So I'm on it, the under, and Vladdy to record a hit tonight. Today's best bets powered by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel Sportsbook app today and find thousands of ways to play. Please play responsibly, 18 plus, physically located in Ontario. Barrios back in the mound for the Jays tonight. And the Angels just have no offense, like whatsoever. They never threaten. It never threatens.
No
And,
Trout.
Yeah.
Ohtani's gone. And like the Jays only have 4 more wins than the Angels this year. And we always talk about the Angels like they are just the armpit of Major League Baseball, terrible team. The Jays only have 4 more wins than them this year.
It's a
like
perspective.
they're not in good company.
No, they're not. And I'm looking at, they just released the lineup. Will Wagner's not playing tonight. Like, what are we doing here, man? Like, I get it. You got other guys you're trying to mix in, and they got Jimenez playing second tonight, and Barger's going in. So Barger's going to play. They got Horowitz DHing. You got to play Will Wagner.
It's like when they would play Davis Schneider last year.
Exactly.
Remember that? Like, Schneider would have a great night. He would be red hot. All of a sudden, yeah, you're out. Why? Just because.
Yeah. Like, unless we're missing something. I mean, they've just, literally, they tweeted out 1 minute ago. So, I don't know what's going on here, but I got to see Will Wagner play, man.
That's your boy, man.
I'm a big fan of the whole story. The guy's played 2 games. He's 26. And he was on fire. He was 2 for 4 last night, 3 for 4 the other night. So
this is what we're holding on to this year,
give us something here, right? Give us something. Let Vladdy continue to hit for power. He had a home run again. He's up to 24 in the season. And give me Will Wagner. That's what I want. That's what I'm looking for. All right, Frankie, thanks for doing this, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, weird day. We got a little rotation, but it's all good.
Yeah, Noodles was in here. John Tavares, you're Austin Matthews. Right? It was a passing of the baton for the show.
Stop it.
Just for the show. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying like big picture, nothing deeper than that. It was a transition of power, right? From
and
Noodles
you are
to Frankie.
Brad Treyliving
I
or
guess.
Brendan Shanahan or maybe Keith Pelly.
I'm not sure who I am. I'm really not that sure. Bobby McMahon. I'm just a guy playing, right? Good guy, Bobby McMahon. Looking forward to seeing what Bobby's got full season in the NHL. I'm looking forward to that. All right, Frankie, good seeing you, man. There's Frankie Corrado. Thanks to everyone behind the scenes for helping out. We appreciate it. Everyone for tuning in, TV, radio, podcast, web. We appreciate that. We're out of here. Enjoy your evenings. Enjoy the games tonight. We're back tomorrow at
4 p.m.
We'll chat then.